Hello, everyone. I'm John Slavin, and I'm a photographer. My photographs are currently on exhibit in the Pennswood Art Gallery. Now, you may recall that this exhibit was supposed to happen back in March. There was going to be an opening. I was going to give a talk. That didn't happen due to COVID-19. It got postponed. So now it's happening. The exhibit is happening. There's not going to be a talk or an opening or a reception, but I'm going to talk to you this way. I'm recording this on my computer, and I'm going to talk about how I got started as a photographer, and then I'm going to go and talk about some of the most of the pictures in the show. I don't know how many pictures actually made it in, but I'm going to talk about the ones that I delivered. So, first off, I want to thank Pennswood for allowing me to do this. I especially want to thank Alice Warshaw for putting this all together, and Bernice King, who invited me to exhibit a while back. I didn't plan on becoming a photographer. It just kind of happened. I always had a camera with me. I was a musician. I was a drummer. I still am. But photography just came out of the blue, and it just kept it like took over basically. And I think anybody that does photography or some art form uh, can understand that how it happens. So I became a newspaper photographer by accident as well. I met Ansel Adams. I was really into Ansel Adams's work as a a landscape photographer. And I had a chance meeting with him down in Philadelphia back in the early 80s. And he suggested that I work for a newspaper because I would starve as a landscape photographer. So I took his advice, and within a year, I was freelancing. I put a portfolio together, and I started freelancing for local newspapers, like the Bucks County Courier Times. And eventually, I bluffed my way into the Philadelphia Inquirer. Now, I didn't have a degree, I didn't have a college degree, I didn't have a degree in journalism. I didn't really have a background in any of this stuff. I was self-taught as a photographer, and it just kept going. And I wanted to see how far I could take it. And I eventually did become a staff photographer at the Inquirer, and I stayed there for 22 years. The title of this exhibit is called "Oh Shoot," which is a play on words. It's a phrase that my mother used to use because she didn't curse. And a lot of the pictures in this show are of a whimsical nature. At least I think they are. I hope you do too. They're all straightforward photographs. There's no trickery. There's no Photoshop. None of that. I've printed all of them on my home printer, and yeah. So let's let's get started. What I have to do. Like I haven't. This is the first time I've done this, so I don't know how this is going to turn out. I'm probably going to screw this up bad, but just bear with me here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this screen out of the way. I'm going to move this all the way over here, and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to click on this screen and go full screen, and there we go. And what we have here is the elephant in the room. We're going to start with this picture. This is one of my favorite pictures of all time. It was an accident shot. I had no idea that I had this picture. I was assigned for the Philadelphia Inquirer to go photograph this. They were doing a story on foster kids, and this was a foster home in Southampton, and they had a petting zoo there, and they had a baby elephant. And as the elephant was being led back to its trailer that was over, these kids were lined up against the fence to pet it as it was walking by. And I was just walking along. I wasn't even looking through the viewfinder. I was just snapping away, probably waist high. I was using a Leica, this film. And when I got down to the bureau and I processed the film, and I'm looking at the film on the light table, and I saw this picture, and I was pleasantly surprised. I had no idea. I wasn't even thinking about getting a picture like this. I brought it over to the editor, and he was absolutely appalled that he's like, no, we can't use this picture. He's like, we're doing a story on the foster kids, and you have a picture of an elephant that looks like it's eating one of the kids. So, yeah, it didn't get published, it didn't get used, but it's still one of my favorite pictures. And it usually gets a laugh when people see it for the first time. This is out in Arizona. This is called Meteor Crater, And it's really, this was a Route 66 trip that I did. The pictures were eventually published in the Philadelphia Inquirer Sunday magazine on Route 66. It was the 66th anniversary of the road, the Mother Road. And this is one of the stops along the way. This, like I said, it's Meteor Crater. And it's really strange. These people are looking out. It's a brick wall with an opening. But Meteor Crater is actually behind them. So it's really a bit of a surreal uh, image. A lot of people shoot this picture, and this is my take on it. This was in Hapro. The circus was in town, and I gravitated toward the clown's face because it was so graphic. I used to have a column in the Philadelphia Inquirer. It was a weekly photo column. It was just a picture. One picture would run, and the column was called "Scene on the Street." And I basically covered the extent of the suburbs, like every county, Bucks, Montgomery County, Delaware County, Chester County, wherever I was assigned that week with other assignments. I would look for a picture. So I gravitated toward the clown's face, but it didn't seem to be working until the worker climbed up onto the ladder. He was putting the tent up, and I think it pulls together there. This picture ran in black and white, but you can see how much better it looks in color. This is a fairly recent photograph. This is in Wildwood, New Jersey. Well, just a street corner. I consider myself a street photographer. So there's a lot of walking involved, and with street photography, if you ask anybody who does street photography, there's about a 90% failure rate, and not only it pays to have a really good camera, but what's even more important is to have a really good pair of shoes to walk around in because you're doing a lot of walking. So I just stumbled upon this scene. I get down there. I used to go to Wildwood when I was a kid, and I know a lot is changing there. A lot of the old motels, the Art Deco style, are disappearing. They're putting up condos, and I've been going down there periodically to photograph it because it was a really great time in my life when I was a kid. I mean, I'm going back like maybe 50 years. So that's like my latest project that I'm doing. This is at Pennsbury Manor. I was there for I forget what I was there for, but these are wild turkeys, and they seem to be somewhat domesticated. People must be feeding them and all because I mean you can see how I mean they weren't afraid of me at all. You can see how close I got to them. So I just think that this is a pretty funny picture. They're walking up into the visitor center. I don't think they actually got in. This is in Doylestown. There's a Polish festival they have every year at Our Lady of Czestochowa, and I was keen on photographing. I like the banners, the different colors of the banner going across there, with the way the light was hitting them. And I was trying to make a picture that way. And this gentleman walked into the frame, and I thought it was pretty good. This was never used either, but I like the juxtaposition of the man's head and the water tower. This was in right outside of Norristown. This is Montgomery County Cemetery, or maybe it's just called Montgomery. But they were doing a cleanup. They were just gathering all the trash. It was I don't know where all the trash had come from in the cemetery, but but when this gentleman went into the can like that, I saw that I had a picture. This is in Bristol, obviously. This kid was riding his bike along, and I was taking pictures of the river right after a big storm. And I have to say, this kid really scared the hell out of me because he rode past me on his bike, and that he is riding on the pier. But I really thought that he was going to ride right out into the river. Luckily, he didn't. But it's a very surreal picture as well, I think, because it looks like he is actually riding on the river. This is another Delaware River picture. This is up in New Hope. I was walking across the bridge from Lambertville to New Hope, and I saw these two girls approaching, and they were all dressed up. And this was in the middle of the week, so I stopped to talk to them, and I asked them. I said, "Why were you dressed up?" Where I said, "You going? Is there a party?" Or he said, "No, we just felt like getting dressed up for today." So I asked them if I could take their picture, and as I was taking their picture, the guy in the boat just sort of appeared, came up, into the frame, and it's it's an unusual shot. This picture did appear in my photo column, the scene on the street, or scene on the river, I guess it would have been. This is in Washington, D.C. This is Bill Clinton's first inaugural party parade. These people were, I don't know where they got these boxes from, but they were standing on the boxes so they could see over the crowd along the parade route. And I call this picture box seats. And this was shot on film. This is Kodachrome. A lot of the pictures in the exhibit are film. There are some digital pictures, but mostly they're a film. Like there would either be color negative film or Kodachrome. Kodachrome was a big favorite of mine to use, and as you know, they don't make it anymore. This is what is now Parks Casino. Back in the 90s, I guess even maybe going back as far as the 80s, I don't remember exactly, but they had a Pennsylvania State Fair there, and they had all kinds of like crazy stuff. And these two girls, they're both sisters, and they had this was their pet snake or their family's pet snake. And this is boys with a snake, and I put this together because I like the juxtaposition again with the contrast, I should say, of the girls being very calm holding the snake and the boys kind of freaking out. And this was at a school in, I want to say Lower Gwinnett in Wissahickon School District. Yeah, the boy in the middle was in agony holding it. And you can see his hands aren't even actually on the snake. Cartier-Bresson would have called this the decisive moment. This is right down the road at Court Creek. This man was fishing, and this stray cat was just roaming around, and I think it was really interested in his bait. But a lot of people are disturbed by this picture. The hook is not there. The cat is definitely not hooked. But I do call this picture catfish. This is at Neshaminy High School. This was a girls' track meet, and they were ready to compete. These two girls, and it was really cold that day, so they were bundled up in this blanket before they had to do their meet. And I couldn't resist with them with the two again with the water towers. I must have a thing for them. But yeah, I thought the picture. I made a picture, and this picture was actually published. And here's another corresponding. This is a boys' track meet. This is at Upper Moreland High School. I got there a little late. They had just fired the gun, the starting gun, and I couldn't get in position to get in front of them so I could shoot them like head on. But I did see the student drop-off sign, and I couldn't resist. I thought that would make a good picture. So this picture actually ran in the paper, but the sign was cropped. It was cut out of the picture. The editor that day, I guess, didn't have a sense of humor. I should say that a lot of these pictures were not published for one reason or another. This picture actually was published. This is right around my neighborhood. It was a few years ago, and I kept seeing these bumper stickers, "Vote Republican," all over the place. There was one up on a sign, and I did shoot a picture of it, but I didn't put it in the show because I thought this one was more interesting. But there was one up on the bypass in Newtown it was a merged left, and then the Vote Republican sign was right underneath of it. So a little corresponding there. But this is the one that I chose to use. And the picture is definitely open to interpretation depending on what your affiliation is. This is in Daytona Beach, Bike Week. They have that every year. I don't know if they had it this year. They might have because I think it is in February. But anyway, this guy was sitting outside at a bar. The bar was called Checkers, but with a little creative cropping, we have the word heck. This is one of the oldest photographs in the show. This was down in Philadelphia. probably back in the early 80s. They used to have a festival there called Super Sunday on the Parkway. And I thought it was really interesting that they had this. Yeah, it was plywood, but it was painted. It was Picasso's painting the three musicians, and the two were cut out, so you could have your picture taken with a Picasso. This is in Oaxaca, Mexico, in the Zocalo. This boy, I just like the symmetry of this boy with the bubbles. There's always a lot going. I don't know if anyone's ever been to Oaxaca. It's really an amazing town. A lot of art. And I used to go down there. I haven't been down there for a while, but I've made several trips there, and during the Day of the Dead festival. I like the symmetry of the bubbles, and yeah, this was black and white film, obviously, and this was with a Leica. The Leica was my favorite camera. Definitely my number one camera to use. This is also shot with a Leica during the Day of the Dead. This is actually on the Day of the Dead, November 2nd. I used to get down there and spend maybe like a week. But the actual, there were two, there were, I mean, there's the festival, they explored it was good to explore the town. I mean, it gives you more time, and because there's a lot of parades and processions and just an amazing celebration. So I found this couple really interesting, and I followed them for a while. I was backpedaling, shooting again with a Leica. Back to Philadelphia. This is the St. Patrick's Day parade. Sometimes it pays to look down instead of looking up. Um, St. Patrick's Day parade was also canceled this year. So many things were canceled because of COVID-19. My band, I play in a band, and my band was actually scheduled to play at the Fire at a club on Girard Avenue that day, and I'm glad that we didn't now. This is right up the road. This was at Council Rock High School. I guess what would be called Council Rock North. The students they would have jars out for teachers. They had I'm sure they don't do this anymore, but back then, this is back in the 80s, that they would nominate a teacher to have to kiss the pig. I think this is during one of their fall festivals, and this gentleman here was I believe he was the band teacher, the band music director, and he had the most contributions in his cup. So so he had to kiss the pig. And I can tell you that this it was real quick. And I believe this picture ran in the Bucks County Courier Times. This is the final picture. This is Seward Johnson, the famous sculptor. I spent a day with him, well, almost a day, while he was working on this sculpture of Abraham Lincoln. The sculpture resides at Gettysburg. So we were finishing up. The reporter had left, and we were just chit-chatting, and we were about to close up. He was about to turn the lights out, and he was wearing his hat, and he said, I feel kind of bad for Abe here. He seems a little overexposed. And so he took his hat off, and he did this, and I snapped away. I got the picture, and this picture was not used. I brought it down to the paper, and they took one look at it, and they thought it was inappropriate, not a sense of humor. But it's still one of my favorite pictures of all time of my career. Seward liked it. I made him a copy, and yeah, it's a keeper. So I want to thank everyone. I'm going to try to get out of this here, and I'm going to come back over. So I want to thank everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed this talk. This talk was like more difficult than I thought it would be, but I hope this one's the one that works. I wish you all well. I thank everyone, and stay safe, please. All right.